And good morning, everybody, to another episode of Coffee, Cream, and Crimson. I'm your host, Kevin Vera, here with just Mason Williams today, just
me.
us two.
Just us two.
How are you, Mason?
Not too bad, man. It's a good Thursday morning here. Weather's nice outside. A little wet, but we're here, so.
It is nicer than I thought for
It
December
is,
2nd.
yeah.
You know
December
what I mean?
2nd, it kind of feels like it's just like November 2nd outside. Not too bad.
Yeah. So, we're back at it again, talking
We are.
about Indiana sports.
It's going to be tough, though, because there's a lot we want to talk about outside of Indiana sports as well.
I was going to say, I did want to bring up, stay tuned if you want to talk about, or if you want to hear about the craziness that has been going on in sports right now, basically in college football and baseball. Obviously, if you've looked at Twitter this morning, the whole baseball world is pretty much flipping upside down.
Pretty much eradicated from history for the last, 40 years all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, we'll get into it.
We'll get into it.
We'll get into it, basically what I was saying. We'll start off with Indiana football. Indiana closes out their season with a 44-7 loss against in-state rival Purdue. Is there anything really to be said, Mason?
Grant didn't look terrible as a starter in a bucket game as a walk-on.
Props to him. I think he played
props to him.
decent.
I think he played well. Okay. He played okay. Nobody played great. It's a fitting end. IU, they could probably score on the 85 Bears on the first drive of the year, and then they just fall off the table every time. It seems like all of our points came from the very first drive of the year. Over the last 3 months or 2 months of the season. So, it's a fitting end of the season. However you look at it, we knew going in. I know we had talked about it off air multiple times. It already looked bleak going in, and we were talking about that mid-season, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And there was maybe a feeling where it's like, IU could pull this out, but then reality just kind of hit, and it's like I said, just a fitting end. Glad it's over.
That's a pretty good point, though, what you said. During the season, we all kind of had these hopes that it would eventually be turned around. But, I would say, Michigan, the week against Michigan, it was pretty clear, hey, it's done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's my point. And, the thing with football this year is just kind of embarrassing. I don't know if embarrassment is the word to use because, it's not like we weren't fluttered with injuries. It's not like we had one of the toughest schedules on the conference schedules in the whole year.
Really, in all of Division I.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're from Bloomington, if you've watched, especially with what happened last year, being ranked 17th week 1 this year, it's pretty upsetting. It's just a punch to the liver. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you kind of have this feeling last year where everybody's kind of pulling for you because you're kind of a new up and comer on the scene, and then you just come out this year and just kind of lay an egg. I know we were talking at our IUSTV taping last night about what grade would you give the IU football season, and how can you give it anything but an F?
Yeah,
it's just a disappointment from beginning to end. Obviously, every team is going to contest with injuries, and IU maybe got hit by that a little bit harder than some other teams do. But still, you would think coming off the last 2 years where you win 8 games out of 12 in 2019, and then 6 out of 8 from last year, including the bowl game. You would think a team like that could go out there and beat Maryland,
somebody,
Rutgers,
somebody, yeah,
somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe at least get bowl eligible.
Yeah,
Maybe the 17th ranking was a little bit too high, and
I think it was. With
hindsight's 2020 though. You can look back at that and say this is the first time that the IU football program had a lot of buzz outside of just Bloomington. Really had any buzz outside of Bloomington going into the year in a very long time. And then you just kind of don't show up. Back to a laughingstock of college football at this point. We're IU's one of 2 two programs in Power 5 that did not win a
Yeah.
Power 5 game.
Indiana and Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Because it was Indiana, Vanderbilt, Kansas, but then Kansas beat Texas a few weeks back.
Kansas did beat Texas.
Yeah. Quick little shout out to all my people from Lawrence. But I kind of want to bring up what you said about the expectations nationwide. Coming into the season, you're only a sophomore. I'm only a freshman. You've lived here your whole life in Indiana. But I was pretty excited coming in about Indiana football because, again, like you said, Indiana was getting nationwide attention with Coach Allen and then everything that happened last year and basically not basically coming out of nowhere, but basically giving life back to historically one of the worst programs in Power 5 football.
Right.
So for me, as somebody who just now started living in Bloomington, just now started living in Indiana and getting all the sense of the culture here, disappointment, like I said earlier, disappointment is the only word that you can give this team for the season. And then the question is, where do you go from here? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, to just kind of piggyback off that real quick, you have a campus that due to the constraints of COVID-19 last year, half of the undergrad students here had never seen a football game as a student.
Yeah.
So you come in as a school that's traditionally a basketball school. Everybody knows traditionally, hey, IU's pretty good at basketball. And football, you kind of just write it off. You go tailgate, you go back to your place, whatever. You have a lot of buzz coming in, and you have people that have never seen IU football before performing. And that's about half the student body at the beginning of the year. And, you're selling out for Idaho, and Cincy's packed at noon on a Saturday, and Michigan State's packed even when and Ohio State's packed. Now, you can Ohio State travels, so how much of that red was IU red and not Ohio State red? That's up for debate. But it's just a letdown. And as far as where Indiana goes from here, that's a good question. Nick Sheridan was
Nick Sheridan
relieved of his duties literally on Sunday after the Purdue game. So
I was still in West Lafayette when he got fired.
Right.
I was leaving my hotel
right
when he got fired, and I saw everything on Twitter.
I think it's beneficial that IU has a coach that realizes that, hey, it wasn't working, and to turn things around, it's going to be a process. But you got to take the steps now, and firing Sheridan, I would say also the coaching changes should not be done. I think there's a couple more that should happen. I think that's where Indiana goes from here. You rebuild through the portal. You have a really good recruiting class coming in, one of the best in school history. It's going to take time, but you got to just kind of flush this one from memory and just kind of attack it straightforward, I think.
The thing with Sheridan that I want to bring up, kind of what I've heard, like on campus, on Twitter, whatever the case might be, is just kind of like this sort of negative narrative against Sheridan and his play calling. And yes, I'm not going to sit here and defend him and say he was, calling national championship level plays. But what I'm saying is, like, what people need to understand about sports, and especially in college, or especially in football, whether at college or the NFL, sometimes it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's not that Sheridan was a bad offensive coordinator, or it's not that he didn't work well with Allen. You could say that a little bit, yes, obviously. But, like, sometimes it simply just doesn't work. And it's not Coach Allen's fault. It's not Nick Sheridan's fault. It's not the team's fault. It just simply doesn't click.
Right.
And that's kind of what I want to emphasize with this, because, in my opinion, that's how I look at it. Nick Sheridan did what he could here. Yes, you can argue.
I mean, the offense scored points last year.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
The offense scored like 30 points a game in 2020. A lot of that is due to the defense causing turnovers that were extremely timely and providing a short field. And, say what you want about Mike. He played better last year. But, it's like you said, like, sometimes circumstances just happen, like, and a team like Michigan, a team like Michigan State last year have down years, and Penn State has a down year last year. They come back stronger this year, and I mean, you could almost call it a little bit of a regression in the means. It's like, those teams still have more talent than IU, top to bottom, depth wise, and that kind of just came to the forefront this year.
Yeah,
It just
I mean,
happened. It just happened.
It's just like, we're both guys. Sometimes sometimes when you meet a girl, you click with her and everything, but it simply just doesn't work out. And it's nothing against her. It's nothing against you. It just sometimes simply doesn't work out.
There was no villain.
Exactly.
There was no
That's
villain
yeah.
in this firing. It was just
It
just needed to be
just
done.
didn't work out.
It just needed to be done. A change was needed.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to bring up to close this out was a pretty crazy stat. I know this is completely off topic, but I did want to mention this because I talked to you and Ethan Mazel about this because, unfortunately he couldn't join us today, but, he typically comes here. Penix led us in passing yards this season.
And he played in, 4 games?
4 or 5 games.
4 or 5 games.
And was out before halfway of the season. And it wasn't even close. McCulley was second, and he had 400 less yards.
Well, Carr also led the team in rushing, and he played in only 8 games or so.
Again, by 380 yards, roughly.
I mean, you can, no matter how you chew it up, spit it out, the offense didn't move the ball this year.
They just
didn't.
Yeah, they just
But
didn't.
that's okay.
And I mean, it goes back to our point with saying Sheridan just simply couldn't get it done this year.
Right. I mean, you flush it, you move on.
Yeah.
Eyes forward.
You told me this before we started the show that the schedule for next year is out, which I had no idea until, So if anybody wants to go look at the schedule next year, I think we play Northwestern
first,
week 1
in Bloomington.
So we'll see the turnout in the fans. We'll see how the media both in Indiana and outside of Indiana reacts to everything.
Good thing is we got about 9 months to forget about this.
I mean, it's what, December 2nd?
December 2nd.
December 2nd, and we're already talking about Northwestern week 1. Anyway,
Like
we'll go on.
September 7th, 2022.
Exactly, yeah. We'll go on. It's been a fun year. I had a pleasure covering the team. I've had a pleasure.
There were a lot of good moments. Don't let that get lost. There were a lot of good moments. There were some highs, but there were some real lows. So,
yeah. Indiana football closes out the year. We'll see. What was it? September 7th?
Something like that.
September something. We'll see Northwestern September something. We'll move on to basketball. Great game.
Instant
2
classic.
days ago
Instant
against
classic.
Syracuse. What an amazing game that was. I had a blast watching that one. It was genuinely yes, we lost, yes, Indiana lost, but I had fun watching every single minute of that basketball game against Syracuse. I mean,
how could you not?
Exactly, yeah. Especially with
you're down 16 at half, and you
yeah.
come back and tie it with 8 minutes to go, and it's just a race down the stretch. How could you not?
Yeah.
As a neutral, I'm sure that game was a lot more entertaining because there was no stress involved.
Yeah.
Obviously, an Indiana fan, a Syracuse fan, that game was pretty tense. But again, one of the games of the year in college basketball already, and it was just on a Tuesday night at 7:00 in the Carrier Dome. How cool is that?
Exactly, yeah. First of all, I want to give credit where credit is due. The Boeheim brothers and Joe Girardi played exceptionally well and shot exceptionally well. You know what I mean? I remember, I kind of forgot about Joe Girardi because when he was coming up, he was like a 4-star, and he was one of the best shooters in his class. I believe he's in the 2018 class. And he had offers from Duke and then Syracuse. Those were the main 2. And then he had a couple more offers. But I kind of forgot about the kid. But if he continues to shoot this way, he can become one of the best shooters in college basketball. I don't know exactly what year he is because of the COVID year. I want to say he's...
Yeah, it's a little bit tough to figure out what kind of eligibilities everybody's got.
I believe he's technically like a junior, but he might be a sophomore because of the COVID year. But, to stop rambling about this, Joe Girardi had an excellent game. The Boeheim brothers had an excellent game. Props to Syracuse.
Props to both sides.
Props to both sides. I mean, Indiana came back. Indiana played well. They fought hard in the second half, and they pretty much completely changed their defensive plan from the first half to the second half, and completely turned everything around. I mean, Syracuse scored 49 points in the first half, and then only 39 to Indiana's 55 in the second one. So Indiana changed their game plan completely in the second quarter of this basketball game. Here's one thing I want to bring up though: turnovers, man. This is what killed the game. And yes, they were in it until the last few seconds, until Joe Girardi closed it out with some free throws. But we were looking at the stat sheet earlier before we started. Indiana's averaging 17 or 16.9, basically 17 turnovers a game.
That is 25th worst in the entire Division One, and there are 358 Division One teams in college basketball.
Yes, Indiana's only played 7 games, but if you want to go back to March, if you want to compete in the Big Ten, when you have teams like Michigan, when you have teams like Michigan State, and when you have the number 1 team in the country in Purdue, that's not going to cut it, man. It's not going to work when you're turning the ball over 10, 11, 12 plus times a game.
And it's frustrating, right? Because you look at the free throw line and you shoot 74% from the line, which is a massive upgrade from what this team has done in the past, what this team normally has even done this year. It's like you finally figured that out. You finally iron, at least for one game, you finally iron out the issues at the free throw line, and the turnovers rear their ugly head. What do they have, 25 of them?
I was just going to say, let me look up what they finished with against Syracuse. They finished with 26.
26 turnovers.
26 turnovers.
It's hard to understate the incredible value of what 26 extra possessions could do for a basketball team. 26 extra possessions, because they shot 55% from the field, 40% from distance.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like even so, you're driving, you're getting to the line, you're shooting 75% from the line essentially. Like it's frustrating for sure, because Woody has talked about in the post game press conferences this year. He's like, turnovers, we want to nip that in the bud. If the team commits more than 12 turnovers in a game, they're all running at practice. Even the coaches have to run. Woody's said that himself.
He's been saying it since Eastern Michigan.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had 13 in the first half.
Yeah.
They had 13 turnovers in the first half. And I think that's partially why they were able to come back in the second half, because they still turned over the ball, but like they didn't turn it over as much. Obviously, Syracuse was red hot from the field. Was shooting like 65% from the field in the first half. So, it felt like those guys in orange could not miss in the first half. So the defense tightened it up. I think the defense still played well down the stretch.
I think they played well.
You could look at the box score and be like, how could a defense play well giving up 112 points in a game? Well, you scored 110.
Yeah, exactly.
And you gave them 26 extra possessions.
Here's the thing, though, from just watching, and this was the first time I genuinely sat down and watched Syracuse basketball. I mean, I'm not from the East Coast. I'm not, a Syracuse student or anything. And so this was the first time I saw them. But I kind of expected more from Indiana's defense, because just looking at both teams on the field, on the court, right? Indiana's bigger and stronger than, you know what I mean? Like Xavier Johnson is bigger and stronger than Joe Girardi and the Boeheim brothers.
This is a deceptive
trade.
It's a deceptive Syracuse team, though.
I agree, but I mean, what was the team? Colgate,
They did
Colgate.
have some ugly losses going in.
Do you really think Indiana shouldn't be able to compete with Syracuse defensively after giving up 100 points to Colgate?
That's the thing moving forward. It's like, yes, there was good signs from this. Yes, you come back from down 16. They were down 20 or 18 at one point. You can look back in years past and be like, this team probably does not do that under Archie Miller, with all due respect. The halftime adjustments were real. You figured it out from the free throw line. You shot the ball well. You just didn't come out on top of the scoreboard at the end of the day. But you look at those losses to Colgate, and you look at the resumes coming in. This being Indiana's first true road game, first time away from Bloomington all year.
Yeah,
that probably plays a factor in it. Carrier Dome is a little bit of a, it's.
I mean, Syracuse is a basketball school. They have
the easiest place to play. So, you can attribute a few things to this, attribute a few things to that, but I mean, you also look at the stat sheet. You got 10 bench points, something like that. 10 bench points out of 110. Syracuse only had 6 off the bench, so it was a very starter heavy game. So
yeah,
a lot you can kind of digest from this, but whether we'll have to wait and see how this loss looks in about a month.
Yeah.
When Syracuse plays a few ACC games,
When
because the
we play some
ACC
Big
is
Ten games.
the ACC is down a little bit this year outside of Duke,
Yeah.
and the Big Ten. Say what you want, but they've got a lot of AP top 25 wins. Anybody can beat anybody in the Big Ten. We'll have to see what this loss looks like moving forward. It's a little bit tough to judge right now because it was such a good game.
And I mean, like you keep bringing up the fact that we'll see how this affects Indiana later on in the season. But whatever happens later on in the season, you got to understand. I mean, this is a close game. You know what I mean? It's not like this is an ugly loss. It's not like people are on their knees tearing up about, a 2-point loss to Syracuse in double overtime. Or, excuse me, in just overtime.
That could have very easily been 20.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, one thing that had caught my eye right now, just to bring up, is like, I was talking earlier about Syracuse. Oh, and by the way, could they have gotten, like, you saw Twitter, the broadcasters were like,
oh my goodness.
Oh my God. I typically don't like to critique broadcasters because, I mean,
we're broadcast students.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to do.
We study media.
Yeah.
We're here doing a radio show, but we work with our television network, our student television network. You got a Syracuse grad and a guy that had worked for Syracuse in the past.
Yeah.
And also Kentucky in the past, who, again, Indiana and Kentucky, not the best
friends.
Yeah,
exactly.
Not best friends. So,
Yeah. No, but the reason I want to bring that up is because
as a neutral, as a viewer, that it was so hard to,
Yeah, exactly.
Buddy Boeheim, the name Buddy Boeheim was engraved in your head after that
exactly.
game.
But the reason I bring that up is because they kept talking about how well Syracuse was shooting, but if you look at the final results, the final stats of the game, Indiana shot from the field goal 51.1%, Syracuse 49.3%. 3-point, Indiana 40.7%, Syracuse 39.2%. Free throw, Syracuse did beat Indiana on this one. Indiana was 74.2%, and then Syracuse was 79.4%.
You could also touch on the referees, though. It's tough.
Here's my thing with that one, though. It's just like you can say that about every game. You can say that about every team, every sport.
I don't want to dwell on it because, yes, the officiating may have been bad for Indiana. It could have been bad for Syracuse. It was bad for both. When officiating is bad for one team, it's bad for both, and it's bad for the entire game. So you can dwell on this all you want, but you never like to see the game decided by the stripes. Whether that was a foul at the end of second double overtime, you can debate a wall. But, I think Indiana will look back at this and be like, they just missed some opportunities. You take away a few of those turnovers, you get a couple more possessions, and maybe you don't even have to go to double overtime. So
I don't know. Look, I mean, you can say like that one foul called on Buddy Boeheim. I think it was Parker Stewart shooting the three. Didn't even touch his forearm. Like, it was close, but he didn't even touch him. And like they said it over the ESPN broadcast. But like, I'm not gonna.
Right. You could
get
dwell
into
on that all you want.
Yeah.
That's not the reason IU lost the game.
Yeah, it's because of turnovers, and I want to make that clear.
Right.
Turnovers is the reason Indiana lost this game.
And that's really one of the only there were not a whole lot of negatives with this game, besides the fact.
Well, I mean, they did start slow. They did start pretty slow.
That's true. You do start. This team has been starting slow. You don't like to, as exhilarating as it is as a viewer, you wouldn't like to be down 16 at half every game, or be down at all really to a team that you probably thought going in that you were gonna not handle but be able to take care of. So
well, you can say that about Marshall, man. I mean, we weren't here, but they started slow against Marshall too. Yeah, they ultimately won the game, but don't tell me that it should be a close game between Indiana and Marshall.
Do you think Indiana's played a full 40-minute game yet? I'd say that the 40 points over Louisiana, something like that. Was it Louisiana that they beat that bad? They beat a couple teams like pretty thoroughly.
Yeah. But
like the St. John's game.
St. John's was close as well.
St. John's was a track meet. I mean, okay, they took care of Jackson State. You're supposed to do that.
I mean,
Northern Illinois, they took care of.
Yeah.
So, they've put together a couple good performances, but I think their issue is like, counting overtime. Indiana played 30 minutes of really good basketball, but they played 20 minutes of not great basketball to start the game.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a little bit tough to get out of. So, once Indiana can put together like 35 minutes, 40 minutes of good basketball consistently, night in, night out, that's when this team will take the next step. And they've got a good opportunity against Nebraska.
Yeah, it'll be the first conference
opener
game this year. You know, Nebraska's, from what I've heard, it hasn't been playing exceptionally well. But Bryce McGowens, the former 5-star from South Carolina, went to Nebraska, so it'll be fun to see him and Trace up against each other this weekend.
Guys got talent, man.
Yeah.
Big Ten basketball's tough.
Yeah.
Anybody can beat anybody.
They also have, I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe he's from China, from Nebraska, who's played pretty well this year. I'm not going to even try to pronounce his name.
I'll take a quick look at it here.
He's China or some country in Asia, but he's been playing pretty well. Again, they have the McGowens brothers, however you pronounce the name. So it'll be a fun game.
Well, their game in the Big Ten ACC challenge was NC State, and they took them to overtime and only lost by 4, 104 to 100. So, again, not a cakewalk for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a fun game this Saturday at noon. It will be Indiana, Nebraska. We'll go on to the women's side of things. You know, right now, if you're watching the video version of this, we'll be talking about this.
Casey Tominga is the Nebraska player.
Yeah.
From Moriyama, Nagoya, Aichi, Japan.
Japan, that's where he's from. I knew he was from either Japan or China. But we'll go on to women's basketball. Again, if you're watching this on the video side of things, we're going to be talking about this after the game is over. But, I mean, today is Thursday, 10:42. So
we're
talk
recording
about it
on Thursday.
Yeah.
If you're listening on the radio right now, first of all, thank you. But IU does play NC State tonight. Number 6.
Top 10 matchup.
Number 6 versus number 2. Another really good matchup in Assembly Hall tonight. And again, if you're watching the video version, this will be posted tomorrow. So you'll already know what happens here. So you can laugh at us and call us stupid, or you can say that we're geniuses.
Yeah, exactly. One or the other.
One or the other.
Here's the thing. You know, it's going to be an interesting game. I think one of the big factors in this is going to be that it's at Assembly. You know what I mean?
It is.
It's going to be a tough, NC State, the number 2 team in the country, in my opinion, you could argue is better than South Carolina right now. I mean, South Carolina did just take down UConn last week, but you could argue NC State is better than South Carolina. But it's going to be a fun game. I hope it gets loud. I hope people show up tonight.
I hope the hall is packed.
Yeah, because
these ladies deserve it.
Yeah, this could be one of the best games of the year in women's basketball.
Well, I think this is one of the things that makes college basketball so great.
Mm-hmm.
When you compare it to a sport like football, men's or women's college basketball, the beauty they get is they get to build their schedule throughout the offseason heading into the next year. Mm-hmm. I know we were talking about off air when we first pulled up the football page, like you pull up the schedule, it's already on next year, and it's already completely set.
Yeah.
And it's set years in advance, and granted they have a lot less non-conference games that they can deal with. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you're able to go into the year and say, IU played NC State in the Sweet 16 last year. It was a 1 seed versus a 4 seed. Mm-hmm. One of the best games I know as a fan, one of the best games I've ever watched of Indiana women's basketball. It was such an incredible experience, and it really captivated what last year's team was all about. And then to essentially be able to go into this season 6-7 months removed from that game and be like, hey, we're going to play you guys again just because.
Yeah.
In the non-conference part of the schedule. I think that's awesome. And I think that's what makes college basketball so great is it allows for these types of matchups to be built, these dream scenario matchups to be built early on in the season. I mean, South Carolina and UConn opened up the year.
Yeah, exactly.
In women's basketball. That was literally 1 versus 2. And in men's basketball, Gonzaga and UCLA opened up the year.
Don't forget Gonzaga and Duke.
Yeah. And then Duke is going on the road to play Ohio State, and obviously we see how that turned out for him. So, I think that's what makes college basketball so great is it allows these incredible matchups to just kind of become common.
Yeah, it allows potential national championship games to happen during the regular season.
You get a postseason feel on December 2nd.
Yeah, exactly. In week 2, 3, 4,
week
whatever
2,
the case
3
might
of the season, you have you have a 5-1 Indiana team that's 6th in the country, and a 6-1 NC State team that's number 2 in the country.
Yeah.
When that's unheard of.
Yeah. And here's one thing I want to bring up. There's 100%. I don't know anybody in North Carolina. I don't know anybody that goes to North Carolina State. But I know if I walked into that locker room right now, they all want this game badly.
Oh, yeah.
They all want to come in here and beat Indiana at Assembly Hall, beat them and show them, hey, we're like far above from Indiana. You know what I mean? And the North Carolina State wants this. And like I said, like I don't know anybody, but
well, you have a 1 seed last year that is expected to go all the way to the Final Four, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just because they're a 1 seed, but because they were generally one of the best teams in college basketball last year on the women's side. So obviously there's got to be a little bit of bad blood, a little bit of sting in the mouth to be like, hey, they took away our shot. They, being Indiana, took away NC State's shot in the national title.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, now we get this matchup to kind of they get a grudge match. IU gets a chance at home in front of a national TV audience on ESPN2 to show that they mean business. They're not just a fluke run from last year. I think the Kentucky win has already kind of proved that. You know, they had some struggles in the Bahamas over Thanksgiving, but
I wouldn't bring that up. The loss against
still,
Stanford on Thanksgiving, you know, Indiana shot 32% from the free field. That's not going to cut it against a top 10 team. You know what I mean? They turned the ball over 24 times against Miami, their previous game. So if Indiana wants to make this game close and win this game, they need to be consistent from the field and not turn the ball over. That's my point, you know.
Right.
I was listening. First of all, can we please broadcast
oh my goodness,
top 10 women's basketball games?
I get that it's Thanksgiving Day and Thanksgiving's all about football, whatever. You had 2 top 10 matchups happening in the Bahamas in women's college basketball, and neither of them were accessible to a mass majority of people unless you had.
They were behind a $25, $30 paywall
for Flow Hoops.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to throw that out there because
and you know, we can get into this, but I hate the argument. It's like, well, nobody's gonna watch it. That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true. You put it out there, people are gonna watch it. There was a demand for this game to be visible, for the game before it to be visible, and neither of them were. Yeah. And you know, that's just not.
I just wanted to bring that up. We gotta
figure that out.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up quickly just to get off my chest because I was with my family talking about the game.
I'm glad you brought it up because I remember sitting there watching Bears-Lions, being like, man, why am I watching this?
Exactly.
You have 2 teams in the NFL that had combined for 3 wins out of 20 games, and just because it's Thanksgiving Day, I have to watch that instead of
a top 10
4
matchup.
top 10 college basketball teams.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Well, we can get in. We could have a whole episode about this, but you know. But the thing about that, I was listening to the broadcast of the Indiana-Stanford game, and I just feel like Indiana kind of lost themselves a little bit at the final 2 to 3 minutes. They played a little less sloppy. I kind of felt like the pressure got to them a little bit. You know, it's away. It's a neutral site. It's Stanford. Stanford's not an easy team by any means. Again, another top 10 team that could easily make a Final Four run. But, you know, Indiana needs to be on their toes this game.
Yeah, I think India would probably like to just forget about the Bahamas trip, in all honesty.
Because I feel like it carried over to Miami because 24.
Yeah. I mean, a 53-51 win against Miami, you can look at it how you want. A win is a win, but would you probably like to win that game a little bit more handily? Even going back to the Quinnipiac game, not the prettiest game either.
Yeah, that was a close game. They were only up by 2.
They were down at half.
Yeah, they were down at half.
But that's one thing that Terry Moore likes to do. She likes to play games close to home for out-of-state players. So that game was Mackenzie Holmes' game.
Yeah.
The plan was to play UConn last year. That would have been incredible. But, you know,
that would have been a blast, man.
You play who's put in front of you.
Yeah.
Indiana did come out with a win in that one. They do beat Miami, and really they only lost by 3 to Stanford. So, and you know, Stanford's now the 7th team in the country. So still the media still is siding with Indiana, saying like, hey, you know, We still think Indiana's a good team, and they've got a really good chance to prove that before they have their conference opener Monday as well against Penn State. So, there's a
Really, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that
the Big
they're
Ten
already playing conference games next
the
week.
Big Ten likes to do that. They'll play a couple conference games at the beginning of December, around that area, and then they'll let teams finish out the non-conference schedule before going back into conference right around New Year's. So, but yeah, I mean, if you're listening right now, if you're able to get out to Assembly Hall tonight, come support the Indiana basketball team. They deserve it. It's going to be a good game. You got a quality opponent coming in, and what more could you want?
Quickly, because I wanted to ask you this. Predictions for tonight. Who do you have winning?
Indiana. Why not?
Look, man, I was watching NC State. I've watched a few of their games. They've been on national TV, and it's going to be a tough game.
Call me a homer.
So it's going to be a tough game.
Call me a homer. I'm technically supposed to be unbiased media right now, but I'm an Indiana student.
Yeah.
I think it would be really cool if the Indiana women's basketball program was like the best in the country.
Don't get me wrong. I agree with you.
Right.
But I think if you look at women's basketball right now,
it's going to be close. I think.
Yes, but I think if you look at South Carolina and NC State, they're clearly the 1 and 2, and then it's a decent separation between
I think the
3, 4, 5.
I think the reason I'm tipping Indiana here a little bit is because it's at Assembly Hall.
I said that when we started the segment.
Right.
I think that's going to be the deciding factor in this game.
Right.
How loud can Assembly Hall be?
How loud can Assembly get? How much of an impact on the game can they have? Because, they blew out
Because
Kentucky.
Indiana's an exceptional team at home.
They blew out
Exceptional
Kentucky by
team at
20 points.
Yeah.
You can. Is there really 20 points difference between the 6th best team and the 13th best team at the time? Probably not.
Yeah.
Assembly Hall is Assembly Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's more known for its prowess during men's games, but come on.
Yeah.
It's one of the cathedrals of college basketball, and it's a home court advantage unlike any other. And I would love to say confidently that Indiana's going to win. I hope they win. So I'm going to predict that they do. I don't have a score because this could be a 55-50 game. It could be 85-84. It could go in multitude of ways, but I'll take Indiana tonight.
Okay, I'm gonna take NC State. To be honest with you, I think right now they're pretty. I think it's pretty much like I said 2 seconds ago. It's pretty clear South Carolina and NC State, the 1 and the 2, and then that gap between everybody else, because South Carolina pretty showed out against UConn. So I'm gonna go NC State. We'll see. They play today at 7:00 at Assembly Hall. Should be a good one. We'll both be there, so if you want to come say hi.
If you want to come say hi to your favorite radio hosts.
Exactly. We'll go on. We only have 7 more minutes, but we'll go on to Beyond Bloomington because I really wanted to talk about this. It's been somewhat of a quiet week here in Bloomington. Somewhat.
But it's been loud.
But it has been incredibly crazy in baseball and college football and NBA basketball. LeBron got COVID yesterday, 2 days ago.
You had the Suns and the Warriors play.
Yeah, the Suns are just tearing it up, and
the Suns started the year 1-3 and decided, we're never going to lose again.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and they look to be the best team in the NBA.
Steph Curry's going to be the MVP.
Yeah,
he's on another level right now. It's not even close to nobody's even playing basketball close to him right now.
Yeah. I have a little bit.
They don't even have Clay back. That's so scary for the rest of the league. They don't even have Clay
and James
or
Wiseman. He got just sent down to the G League,
right?
2 or 3 days ago.
Right, Clay and Wiseman just got sent down to the G League so they can get some practice reps. Oh my goodness, dude.
Yeah.
Those guys come back and this team is at full strength. Look out.
I told friends, family before the season started. I was like, look, yes, the Warriors did not play great last season, but they're going to be the best team in the Western Conference.
It's kind of like what's going on in the NFL with the Patriots right now. It's like
that's a good point.
They had one down year, but hey, the Patriots are still the Patriots. The Warriors are still the Warriors. You can say what you want about a Tom Brady versus Mac Jones, whatever, and then you can say what you want about, how this Warriors team is different versus another Warriors team in the past that has dominated the league. But my goodness, the usual suspects are back.
Yeah.
It's almost a sense of a return to normalcy.
Yeah. Quickly though, who do you think is the best team in the Western Conference? The Warriors or the Suns?
I think in the long run it'll still be the Warriors.
I think you got to go with the Suns, man. I think what they're doing right now is special.
D-Book is insane.
I think. Well, here's the thing that amazes me about the Phoenix Suns right now. They're playing traditional basketball in a time where that's kind of lost a little bit of its power and a little bit of its identity. And they have come out and smacked everybody around. They have come out and showed with veteran players. I was listening to Colin Cowherd yesterday or 2 days ago, and he made a very good point. Besides Chris Paul and maybe one or two other players, everybody on that Phoenix Suns team right now is in their prime, and you clearly see it on the court.
This is their window.
Yeah,
their window is wide open right now, and it's kind of the contrasting styles of, the game that Steph Curry has essentially changed and invented of himself, of the centered around the deep ball and spacing around the court. And then you have guys like Chris Paul and the Suns that, they get to their spot and good luck. Because unless you're 7 feet tall, that ball's going in the basket from 15 feet. Yeah. So, it's two contrasting styles, and I love it because, if everybody played the same brand of basketball, I think it's boring. Mm-hmm. I'm a Thunder fan, so we're sitting there at the bottom. We're kind of tanking. We're rebuilding, but there's still a lot of future to be excited about. So I'm spending all sorts of time watching other games, like whether it's the Suns, the Warriors, the Bulls in the Eastern Conference. All these teams are so fun to watch because they each play their own brand of basketball, and it all works.
Yeah.
And this is really good for the NBA, I think.
And I mean, there's drama in Los Angeles right now with LeBron and Westbrook and everything, and
Davis as well. Like, what's going on?
I told people before the year started, I was like, hey man, I don't really believe in this whole get players 4, 5, 6 years out of their prime and bring them to one spot.
Speaking of drama, since we do have a little bit of time, only a little bit of time left, Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly.
We'll switch. We weren't even supposed to talk about NBA basketball.
Yeah.
Funny enough.
NBA basketball was not even on our rundown here.
Yeah,
but
it's just us being casual, being
This is what
fans.
happens when you only have two radio hosts.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's essentially just two guys that are just talking about sports. I mean, that's exactly what it is. But it's essentially just water cooler talk.
That's pretty fun. That's hilarious how we just both included NBA basketball last minute. We'll quickly go. I want to say this about Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly. And here's
say what you want about Lincoln Riley, but the move makes sense, right?
The move makes sense for both of them.
Like,
do you really anybody right now listening, anybody in the state of Indiana, do you really think Brian Kelly can win a national championship at Notre Dame?
No. I think you know what? I think they may have got better by hiring Marcus Freeman, by promoting Freeman. They may have got better. They really. I
liked the Marcus Freeman signing.
I'm so serious about that. Like they may have got even better with that. And I know I have some friends that go to Notre Dame, and some friends that are Notre Dame fans that are extremely happy about the way things have transpired. And 2 days ago it looked like their program was like left for dead.
Yeah.
Now what Lincoln Riley has done with Oklahoma, he has set them back.
Oh, absolutely.
He has set them back.
Here's my point. You can't really hate Lincoln Riley for leaving because the final nail in the coffin was their decision to move to the SEC in 4 years.
And they got influenced by Texas to do that.
Yeah, exactly. They said, "Hey, we've been the big boys of the Big 12 the past couple of years. We can compete again." No, you can't. No. You're not going to be able to go in there in 4 years and compete.
And it's shown every time they've gone to the playoff, they get blown out.
Yeah.
They were down. They gave up 49 points to LSU.
He's 1-3 in college football playoffs.
Right. And it makes sense. Why would you not go out to the Pac-12 where you can recruit the entire West Coast, you can recruit all of California, and absolutely run that conference, when in the SEC you're still recruiting against Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. Some of these programs, Ole Miss, some of these programs that aren't even really all that great, but it's SEC.
Yeah.
So
Well, here's
people
the
are going to
thing.
be all about that.
You say they're not that great, but if you put them in the Big 12, you put them in the Big 10, you put them in whatever conference,
They're going to
they
kill
dominate.
everybody.
Yeah.
They're going to kill everybody.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of who's going to take that Oklahoma job?
I've heard some names.
But you think Lincoln Riley goes? Or not Lincoln Riley. Of course not. You think Lane Kiffin goes?
I say no because of the possibility of Archie Manning coming into Ole Miss in a few years.
Right.
I think Lane's
got a good thing. Lane's got a good thing going with Ole Miss.
Being the character that he is, I think he stays because of Archie, of the possibility of Archie. But I'm not sure who's going to pick up the Oklahoma job soon. I'm not sure what Oklahoma's going to do. I mean, they've lost a ton of recruits in the past 48 hours, but we'll see what happens. It'll be fun to see Lincoln Riley do his thing at USC. It'll be fun to see how Brian Kelly goes and does his thing at LSU. But we'll leave it at that. We went a little bit over our time.
We didn't even get to talk about baseball.
I know, we didn't even get to talk about baseball. Start on Twitter, hashtag Coffee Cream and Crimson Fire, Rob Manfred for life, because that's all you got to know about the whole situation right now going on. Kevin Vera, Mason Williams, another Coffee Cream and Crimson. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week, 10 a.m. Eastern on Thursday, as we'll bring you more about the Indiana sports and what is going outside of Indiana. Again, Kevin Vera, Mason Williams, thank you very much. Y'all have a good one.